peoples give in their day-to-day life, that tax. So they are contributing towards the economy. So what are your views about this?
Yeah, in my opinion, I agree with the first part of the sentence that fine is a tax which is levied on doing something wrong, but tax is not a fine for doing something right. Like, so tax is not a fine. It is just a small contribution of an individual in the nation's development. So one should not view tax in a negative sense. Like, uh, I see that many people today in the country see that tax is a burden on them, and the government is not giving them services. It is true that the all the money of tax is not spent wisely, but it contributes in the long run to the benefit of the individual. So the individual should not view the tax as a fine for doing something right. It is just a small contribution in the nation building. So one should think above oneself for the nation. One should think for the nation and view tax in that sense. Yeah. So what are other?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Rajat,
I
absolutely.
absolutely
The
agree.
very reason why you are able to pay the tax is because you are able to earn. And the essence of your earning comes from the nation's infrastructure, which in turn you are vitalizing over it. So paying your what you are earning, a little part of it in form of tax, so that your future upcoming generation, like if you just want to focus on yourself, why you're considerate about the fine, so your upcoming future generation in turn is going to enjoy a lot of its benefits, be it in terms of the structural infrastructure or the socio-economic infrastructure. And we can establish a fact over here that if we have a proper taxation system, we in the longer run we can have a unified healthcare sector, healthcare segment, which in turn is provided by the government to the each and every individual of the country, as in what we can see when we talk about US and European countries, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think taxation has many benefits. So, like Himanshu mentioned, that universal basic healthcare scheme, which is there in most US, like Western countries like US and Canada. So that is one part of the tax. So tax has many benefits. So like give a toll tax on the road. So that the tax helps in the development of the roadways. So we can today see that many projects related to roadways infrastructure are being taken up by the government, like the Bharat Mala project, which will connect around 55 districts of India to the via four-lane highway. So this is so these are some examples of tax which we give, and they help in the nation building process. Yeah.
I certainly don't think that tax is a fine for doing something right. I will support my statement with an example where recently millionaires of the world themselves came up to the world government and they pleaded world government to collect 1 to 2% tax from their earnings. An estimate, a study showed if this was done, it could generate around $174 billion, and that could be used for to fight pandemic. Okay, so tax is certainly not a fine. It can be boon to social causes. It can be it is certainly nations building blocks. So tax is certainly not a fine. But fine is a tax for doing something wrong. It's the statement as it says, it's valid. Guys, what are your thoughts about it?
Yes, most of the people are agreeing with that. Tax is a fine. Tax is right for in every aspect. So I would like to draw something here, that fine is not equivalent to tax, because I feel like sometimes we do something not intentionally. Like yes, I know when the fine is taken from us, it's about a punishment or something like that. But when we not do something intentionally, and sometimes we are not putting our helmets, the second person sitting behind two wheelers, so that time also they take the fine. Even in the when we are traveling in train, sometimes we do not get the train tickets. entity comes and he takes charges from us as fine. So what I just want to draw our attention here, that where this fine, this money goes, like this is not developing our nation, this is not for the beneficial of something like this. So just I want to draw something here.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think
It's not
so.
beneficial
That
for
is
the
not true.
country, because in turn, if someone is paying a fine, what the system is doing, it in turn is sending him a signal to change his habits. So let's say if you walk in India on the right side of the lane, which is wrong, and if you're fined for that, then in the longer run, it's a good thing, because it is going to stop the upcoming accidents. Okay, it is going to stop the traffic jams which we might have. So I don't think so. Having a fine is completely wrong, though having
Yes,
a
Yeah, I
heavy
I
fine
totally agree
might
on
in
this
turn
point.
elevate to something else.
Yeah, I totally agree on this point. And that example which Dimpy picked, the second person which sitting on the motor vehicle do not wear helmet, that is also for our safety, right? So it prevents the injuries and the accident that occur. So that is how the government is correcting our habits.
I would like to add something here. I think that tax is a fine for doing something right. I just recalled an example of US-China trade war, where in 2018 US started imposing tax on China for all its products that were imported in US. I think that tax, okay, to build the economy, or to reduce the consumption of the Chinese product, where heavily Chinese products were distributed in US. Is that not a fine, kind of a fine to the citizens of a country where a heavily dominance of something is suddenly taxed from a level which was not before? So it's kind of a fine for the citizens of the country. Don't you think that this is the case where tax is a fine for doing something right, to create a competitive environment, to produce a service, and it's kind of a fine taking into assumption the view of consumers?
Absolutely, Priyesh, absolutely. Because we can establish one more fact over here, that as per Niti Aayog, only 3% of the Indians are paying the so-called income tax. Now, just think, the 3% spent on the 100% of the population can take India's GDP to a roaring 8% in this fiscal year. Imagine what happens when when the numbers ball up to a matter of fact, let's say 30 or 40%. The level which we as a nation will be having on the subcontinent of Asia will be immense, guys, isn't it?
yeah, I
Yeah,
think there
I
is one
totally
more
agree on
example.
that.
Yeah,
Because
like some.
here the tax is fine. This depicts positively only because they are promoting that more of a people, more of the population should pay tax so that they can uplift the economy, they can uplift the GDP. So here the fine is being used rightly.
Yeah, so many people in India like seek to move to tax haven countries like Dubai, which do not, which has 0% income tax. So this shows that people are very not serious about paying tax, and they just care for themselves and not for the country as a whole. So like, think this attitude needs to be changed by the people. Like they need to be somewhat dedicated or somewhat responsible towards the nation.
So we can come to a conclusion, right? That a fine is a tax for doing something wrong. We need to fine people, or we need to say tax people to maintain the structure of our world. And but there are some cases that we can agree that tax is a fine also for doing something right, but not always.
Great session, guys. It was a really great session. But I have just noted one thing, that in the start, whoever spoke, he told that we have a topic today which is a very good topic. Never do that. Whoever told it, never do that,
I
because
did that.
technically you are starting the GD, but are you actually starting the GT in any way? Like, are you contributing to it? In turn, at the later part of his session, he did pointed out and started giving few facts. but it would have been more impactful if this was the very starting.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
think one as the
uh,
time is very limited in GD, so 1 or 1.5 minute get wasted in that. So I think there is already very less time in GD, so that takes a minute or so. So time gets already, which is very less. It gets all less, even lesser.
And someone also pointed out the tax haven countries like Dubai. So in turn, Dubai is a tax haven when we talk about direct taxes. But when we talk about indirect taxes, so it is actually like it falls under category of high taxation. Because let's take an example of something. Let's say example of samosa. I love that. Okay, so the cost of samosa in India is 5 rupees. Okay, now just to establish a standardized denomination, let's talk it in terms of dollars. So it will be around $0.07. Okay, but when you take that same samosa and you talk in terms of Dubai's economy, it costs you around $2, which in turn is an actually inflated price of 140 times. So indirectly, you're paying more, right? So whoever like whenever we have this taxation and all these things, do clarify your point with what perspective you're talking about. So
Okay,
just
so I
mention
was talking regarding the salaried persons. Yeah, so
so just talk that it when we talk about direct taxes. So these small tweaks and these small carings in turn is noticed by the panelist. They notice it and certainly they are going to get good marks for that. Anyone else would like to contribute anything? Any of his findings? Well then, I guess let's move to the other one. Is an MBA necessary for going up the corporate ladder? Well then guys, is an MBA necessary for going up the corporate ladder? And
so
see,
in actual GD, do we get some time for preparing, or like it starts instantaneously after giving the topic the
well,
GD?
I'll reiterate the preceding how it happens is that at the brink of your joining, you guys will be floated with few topics, generally 2 topics. And among that, you need to vote amongst yourself which one as a group you guys would like to take up. All right, so let's say we just now had these 2 topics. Fine is a tax for doing something wrong and tax is a fine for doing something right. And another topic is an MBA necessary for going up the corporate ladder? Then there will be a voting on the chat box that which topic would you like, 1 or 2. All right, so let's say the majority says topic number 1. Then once this fact established that we need to go ahead with the 1, you'll be provided with 2 minutes of time to jot down your points on a paper. Okay, and once you have done that, then there will be a 10-minute window for you guys to have a discussion, of which the first 8 minutes is purely for the discussion and the last 2 minutes is for having and stating out the conclusion. And remember one thing, there can be two conclusions. There can be two conclusions. So let's say if someone concludes a GD, you as a person, if you don't feel strongly with his conclusion, you can say on the hindsight we can also conclude that whatever your findings are from the GD. And one more thing you guys can do is, let's say you didn't get it, like you think you didn't spoke much in the GD proceeding. So once the GD is concluded, you can again interrupt and say, I would also like to just add one more point into the conclusion, whatever your extra finding was. So this thing can be done. And so this is how generally GDs are taken place. Any acknowledgement? Yes, no.
Yeah, we understood.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Okay, guys. So this one is the topic. Is MBA necessary for going up the corporate ladder? So I'll just reset the timer and let's start.
So I would like
A
to
point that I would
start
like
by
to iterate right now.
yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so a point I would like to iterate here. Uh, when we talk about MBA, a lot of people say that it's a rat race. But if we look at if we look at if we look at most managers at the esteemed companies, a lot of them do not have an MBA. So it's very clear that we don't necessarily need an MBA. Although yes, MBA provides us a lot of information on how a business is actually run, and what are the ethics that needs to be followed, what are the laws that need to be followed. But even though you have not done MBA, you have just hard worked, you have worked for a company for 17 and 18 years, you can easily climb the ladder. Although yes, it would take you some time uh, to climb up that ladder, but still, with if you have talent, if you have the potential to learn on the job, you don't really need an MBA. What do you guys think about this?
I would
Absolutely,
like to
buddy.
add
MBA
some
is now at the
example.
moment thing of the past. Yeah, please go ahead, Priyesh. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that I would like to add an example to this. In my previous organization where I was working, most of the mid managers who were not possessing MBA, they came from a technical background since I was from an IT organization. So what I observed over there was the maximum position that they reached in their corporate career was of a project manager at their 45s and 50s. This was my observation, not only in my project, and uh, 2 to 3 projects that I observed. And during my work period over there, there was a guy who did his MBA from Australia. He was straight hired as an account manager. Now that is something which maybe he might be probably 30 or 35 years old, newly married. Now see the difference where he is starting and where maximum of the guys without an MBA reach in their corporate career. So I don't completely say that MBA is not at all necessary. MBA might not be that much necessary for a corporate ladder, but it's definitely a booster for to climb up a corporate ladder in any organization.
Yeah, obviously
Absolutely,
MBA is a
absolutely.
booster because it is a higher degree. It is a master's degree. So
Yeah.
if we go according to the hierarchy, the master's degree will uplift us in the corporate world. That is obvious. But nowadays there are various type of skill sets, various types of persons that acquire much more experience in their work and skills in their work, and they perform a lot better without having an MBA degree. So yeah, without an MBA degree, there is also a survival. There is also a chance of more growth.
I would like to present a counter argument over here by stating the fact that though in turn at, at the information age in which we are now in the very moment, getting access to the information and knowledge is quite easy. But having an MBA in turn makes you learn two very fundamental things. One is networking, which in turn the people who have their own who are extroverts and their interpersonal skills are great, they can do, but not for everyone. And once this is done, the other fact is that MBA gives you an access to the prior alum network, and it establishes a fact that okay, you have achieved a particular kind of mindset, you are amongst such and such category of the people, be it in terms of intellectual property, be it in terms of your economical aspects of you being a person of finance or marketing. So I do agree that MBA is quite necessary when we talk about corporate ladder, exclusively for corporates.
Yeah,
One
so
thing I would like
I
to add
terms of
here.
networking, we have to
Yeah,
develop
one thing I
some.
would like to add here. Okay, so I would like to agree with what Himanshu said, especially on one point that information available to us right now is abundant. We can have access to information everywhere, and it's very convenient, it's free, or it's very cheap. But one thing I would like to state again, that since information is available freely and in a very large scale, we don't really need an MBA. We can upskill ourselves while we are sitting in our offices without an MBA. We can do certifications, we can do certificate programs which are either very cheap or just free of cost. While
Yeah,
we
so
are,
I
yeah,
So
yeah,
please
so
continue,
I
please.
to
agree
state
with
to Humayun's point,
this point that
Humayun
MBA
would
is
okay.
not definitely necessary for climbing the corporate ladder, but it is beneficial for climbing the corporate ladder. So we can see that many entrepreneurs of the world, like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, they are not MBA, but they are the like richest person in the world. So
No,
this shows that MBA is not necessary for like a corporate ladder, but yeah, one fast tracks his or her growth by doing a MBA degree. So NBA is not completely necessary for climbing the corporate ladder, but the alumni network and the peer learning which MBA provides is definitely beneficial for climbing up the corporate ladder. Yeah.
So
yes, I would
basically,
like to
once
That
you're
take the
able to
knowledge
liberty
show
of
that
correcting
will
my
be
that,
friend over
provided.
here. I would like the liberty to correct my friend over here. As Rajat said that Elon Musk was not an MBA. He is indeed an MBA, and he makes boldly the statement in media that he doesn't need MBAs to run an organization, whereas he is an MBA. Okay, so now a person who has achieved so much, he is CEO of something dream where we dream our jobs to be, is saying making up such a bold statement that we do not need MBAs right now. There might be something there might be something which he is pointing at that doesn't necessarily means that MBA is completely out of the picture. MBA is certainly in fact climbing up a corporate ladder is just a, perk of MBA. Now let's see, we need to have a graduation before doing an MBA. Okay, so for example, someone is coming from a BTech background, 60 students in his class get the same degree, pursue the same technology, or might be on the same grounds, but an MBA gives a different learning to different person. Your learning can be differently can be completely different from mine. Okay, so MBA is something which is not necessary but is icing on the cake, I think, and going up a corporate ladder is just a perk of an MBA.
I think that MBA works as a person to person thing. If we talk about the extroverts, they can gather knowledge from various other fields, other areas like YouTube and like books and all things, and can use their practicality and extrovertness so that they can add on to the growth. But for the introverts, they do not have such practical knowledge or practicality in the public. Okay, so they are introverts, so they need knowledge according to that. They have not opened up yet in the corporate area. So the need for them is MBA is right.
Well, I would like to state one thing. I feel once you're able to show that you're able to groom yourself without any degrees, you're able to learn on the job, you're able to learn every day. You're not stagnant to a particular position that you're in the corporate, even if you are a manager or an assistant manager, but you're always able to show that you're ready to learn new things, even if it comes from your higher posted manager or a person who is below you and at an executive level. If you're able to show that you're uh, ready to learn everything and you're ready to learn every time, every day of the week, you'll easily be able to grow, because that is something that your managers would see, that is something that would reflect in your personality and would help you automatically boost your career.
Well, I would like to point out a quick recorrection over here is that when we talk about corporate ladders, then the HR policies come into play. And as per the HR policies, the top management, that is vice president and above, the top tier sub-technical managers, they need to have a particular degree set that has been decided by the organization itself. So I guess those who are not having an MBA will certainly rise up the corporate ladder, but will be stuck at a point. If they are gunning out to turn out to be CEO, CXO, CTO, and CEOs, then I guess they need to have an MBA. And I guess this very well concludes the topic.
I
To
also
add to
want to
Himesh's
add that
point,
point in the
so
conclusion
MBA,
that MBAs does the boost up to our corporate experience, right? And without doing MBA, that is a slow pace race that we are going on. But the boost up that provide is the MBA itself.
And another conclusion that I would like to add here is that we essentially need an entrepreneur. We need a mindset rather than a degree. So yeah.
Great, guys. Well, for the matter of fact, it was a really good GD, but just for few small GK snippets, I would like to point out that since it was very much inclined towards corporate ladders, and we talk about corporate, then the corporates are those companies which come under section of CMM5. Now, what CMM5 level companies are? These are the companies which have 5,000 plus employees working under them. So when anywhere, if you see that be it VAT or be it GD, if corporate is considered, then you are looking at a collective count of 5,000 people. All right, and 5,000 plus peoples. And what happens is that if we talk about the reality, as someone mentioned that they have accumulated some so and so have accumulated a lot of wealth. So for having wealth, having your own business is the best. And if you are having your own business, then you cannot ignore the so-called Flipkart mafia. Now, what Flipkart mafia is, those who were in the starting of the founding company of Flipkart, each and every one at the moment has his own startup in one way or the other and is making a good amount of money. So this, like, we need to be very much focused during our GD that what exactly is the topic, and if someone is going way beyond the topic, then as a team member you should intervene and tell that, guys, we are going quite on the other side of the GD. Let's get back to the point of what corporate ladder actually is all about. Then you could just quickly explain what corporates is, and then turn, okay guys, now I guess we can have the discussion further ahead. So this is a quick update, or rather a quick thing which you guys can incorporate in your habits. Because if you do this, I'm 100% sure that you'll be getting 8 plus on a scale of 10.
Rajat, my bad, bro. I told that MBA Elon Musk doesn't have an MBA. He has an MBA. I told.
Oh,
I
okay,
countered your
okay.
point, but he actually doesn't have an MBA. You were right. So I kind
Oh.
of remembered some kind of in comment. I was somewhere I was reading और मैं कहीं पढ़ रहा था यार ये ना एलॉन मस्क करता रहता है ना MBA
नहीं, वो
हाँ,
एमबीए के खिलाफ बहुत ट्वीट करता रहता
बहुत
है,
बोलता है
एमबीए
ना
के
तो
काफी
कहीं
खिलाफ रहता है वो।
कमेंट में ना लिखा था कि वो खुद भी एमबीए है। मेरे को एकदम से वो रिकॉल हुआ और फिर मैंने अभी चेक किया ना तो उसकी जो डिग्री है वो असल में है एमबीए की ही मतलब इक्वलेंट टू जो उसको एजुकेशन मिली हुई है वो इक्वलेंट टू एमबीए है बट एज सच टाइटल नहीं है उसका एमबीए। तो तू करेक्ट था। माय बैड।
वही मास्टर्स यूनियन वाला हाल है।
हाँ 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 हाँ।
बट वैसे ये है, इंडिया में फ्लिपकार्ट माफिया है और अमेरिकन कॉन्टिनेंट पे अपना ये पेपाल माफिया है, स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम में।
फ्लिपकार्ट में वो जो थे सचिन बंसल, बिनी बंसल, सब अलग होके अपना अब स्टार्टअप
अब देखो ना,
बना
अब ये
लिए
जो
सब।
नावी नावी शुरू किया है, नावी
नवी,
ये
हेल्थ केयर, हेल्थ
फिनटेक
केयर वाला।
फिनटेक
हम्म।
फिनटेक है, हेल्थ टेक है, इंश्योरेंस है, हर एक
हम्म।
पैरेलल लाइन में चला गया है।
मतलब 15 मिनट में इंश्योरेंस का अमाउंट अप्रूव हो जाएगा, ऐसे करके उनका कुछ है। नोट
फिनटेक
करो।
बेस्ड है, फाइनेंशियल
हम्म।
टेक्नोलॉजी। और ये हो गया, फिर अपना जेफ बेजोस।
वो तो हर तरफ है, जब बिजनेस स्पेस में भी जा रहे हैं, मतलब ई कॉमर्स के। अब ज्यादातर एंटरप्रेन्योर हर स्पेस में आ जाते हैं, मतलब हर फील्ड में।
क्योंकि उनको दिख गया है कि अब दुनिया खत्म है।
ब्लू होराइजन भाई मैं उस दिन वो देख रहा था क्या ऐसी मतलब मेरे को काफी इंटरेस्ट है स्पेस वगैरह में है ना तो सैटेलाइट देख रहा था मैं कैसे मतलब अर्थ की पिक्चर क्या होती होगी इतनी सारी सैटेलाइट जो घूम रही हैं बाप रे बाप। मतलब दिस इज बैंगलोर का एक स्टार्टअप खुला था ना कि दो वो ट्रैश कलेक्ट कर रहे थे इंडिया का मतलब इंडिया की
हम्म।
स्टार्टअप। तो वो उनका ये था प्लान कि वो जितना भी डेबरी होती है ना जितनी भी जनरेट होती है सैटेलाइट्स के थ्रू दे वर कलेक्टिंग दैट, मतलब वो खुद एक टास्क कितना बड़ा, कितना कितना इनपुट जाएगा उस चीज में, इन सब चीजों में, दैट इज समथिंग दैट कम्प्लीटली एक अलग ही डोमेन चलेगा फिर वो भी एक।
अरे स्पेसएक्स और नासा का एक जॉइंट वेंचर है इन विच दे आर प्लानिंग टू स्टैब्लिश अ माइनिंग सिस्टम ऑफ कोर आउट ऑफ दिस एस्ट्रॉइड्स, जितने भी मिनरल्स हैं उनको
हाँ
एस्ट्रॉइड से माइन करके और फिर फर्दर
हाँ
मार्स
हाँ
पे
हाँ।
ह्यूमैनिटेरियन ग्राउंड
असल
स्टैब्लिश
में है
करने के
भाई
लिए।
ऐसा,
या
मतलब
अब
एस्ट्रॉइड
देख के मैं
ओल्ड
कहा,
वर्ल्ड
अरे
मतलब।
बाप रे बाप, यहाँ एक SIBM पुणे का कॉल लेने में यहाँ हालत खराब हो जा रही है, लोग क्या क्या कर रहे हैं लोग। वैसे guys, last 4 minutes remaining, so we can have a casual chat and then we could move to our PI question of today, which is strengths and weaknesses. Well, I can see a lot of people, 9 at the moment. कौन कौन नहीं बोला? शिवानी कुछ नहीं बोली, डिम्पी इस बार कुछ नहीं बोली, और आनंदी कुछ नहीं।
Anandi, there's someone as Anandi.
Okay, I remember. Anandi is a new member. She just now pinged me before start of this session that for today I'll be just watching you guys, and from tomorrow I'll start participating. So Anandi, why don't you unmute yourself and introduce us?
Actually, because of COVID, my throat is literally on top. That's why I muted the mic. But I really like all your conversations. Actually, I'm new to this. I have never been into any GD or PI, so I just want to know the structure and the keywords like yeah, this point is right. Let me add something to this. So I just want to know that, so that how can I start and how can I introduce myself in between the GD.
Well, I wish you get very well soon, Anandi, and start participating.
Yeah, tomorrow I will be participating with you
Sure,
guys.
sure, sure. And who we have another one? Dimpy, I think spoke about. Well then, I guess last 3 minutes remaining, I'll end this one, rejoin the same link, and I'll be sharing the PI topic for the day.
Yeah, if you're having casual conversations, can you stop the recording? I want to say.